What's up? What's up? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, brother. How you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. How's your week been? Been I've been just
Um,
juggling life, man.
I don't know, dude. It calmed down a little bit. I was man on Monday. I'm like, man, it has been a hell of a week. I'm ready for the weekend, but it's gotten a little better. It's clean. It's slowed down a little. I've still got what you call it. I've got some mortgage CE classes I'm teaching this week. It's mortgage continuing education is 8 hours per year. And unlike Realtor CE, where they can break it up, a lot of
Yeah.
it's electives. They have some required classes like ethics and some law, but Realtor CE, it's I want to say out of the in Florida they do 14 hours every 2 years, so it's 7 hours a year equivalent of.
Hmm.
But most of it can be electives and sort of pick and choose, and they can be like, oh, I want to learn about credit repair, or I want to learn about... I teach a couple more realtor CE classes, like working with investors and commercial and that sort of thing. And so that it can be like that on the realtor
Just be
stuff,
anything.
but on the mortgage stuff, it's a set curriculum. It's 8 freaking hours. And so I did 4 hours last night and 2 hours, 4 more hours tonight, for a group for the Florida
I mean,
Association of
that's seems
Teaching
like
and Spa.
finance. Finance is always boring as shit.
Oh, shut up! No, it's not. No, it's not. Oh my God.
It's like, oh, realtors, yeah, you do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Finance, finance,
Well, that there is truth to that. Realtors can kind of skip and go naked in the woods and do whatever makes them happy.
and it makes sense. That's kind of how they do their jobs anyway.
Often, there's that's actually very true. Unfortunately, the standard of performance is not very consistent.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, other than just straight up lying, they don't have to really uh, follow a straight line.
And a lot aren't like that, but there's enough.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my buddy who was a I had a buddy who was an attorney. We were friends when he was a military attorney. He was in the Marine Corps with me, and he told me a couple of stories about law school. And he went to whatever, maybe like Villanova or something. He went to like you know, a high end. He didn't go to community college law school of freaking East Las Vegas or something.
Right.
He went to a... No offense to the community college of East Las Vegas. I'm sure it's an esteemed institution, but he was a super smart guy.
Yeah.
And we were talking about law school, talking about that, just whatever it came over drinks, and he said, "Man, lawyers are the freaking worst." He said they're the worst people, and it's he's like, he was like, I don't know if it's people that are attracted to law just are bad people and go into law because of it, or if they learn it in law school. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, I'll give you an example. At his law school, he was like, man, in the bigger lectures or even in the in the classes, if you had, let's say you're in there, you got your notes, your stuff in a lecture, and this was of course before, people... we didn't have like the internet to do research, right? They had to do shit and go to law libraries and whatever, right? And if you had your notes, which were obviously pretty important, um, if you went to the bathroom and left your notes on your desk, they'd be gone when you got back. And he told me that, and I said, I mean, I get it. People are, you know, they wanna steal your notes, and I mean, I get it. And he goes, yeah, but it's not for what you think. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, what do you think? Why would they do that? And I said, yeah, so they can have them and use them and get an advantage. And he said, nope, not a not for that. They want to steal your notes so that you can't use them, so that you don't have the notes, so that your performance goes down and they can finish above you. Like, I mean, think about that. I mean, I can almost, stealing somebody's property is always wrong, but I can almost kind of understand, like, well, Brandon's way smarter than me. He probably took way better notes. I want to see what he said about this.
Right, yeah. You
But
know,
no, it's not that. It's so that I can step on Brandon and make him do worse than me. It's
that
kind of
sounds like
messed
a
up.
lawyer. Yeah.
And that's the mentality. And so he said, their mentality is like that. And he said 99% of attorneys give the rest a bad name.
Yeah.
That's what 99% of attorneys give the rest a bad name. Like maybe 1% of them aren't bad guys.
Right.
So that's
I
kind of it's kind of sad though. You're like, damn,
I think
I
that's I
mean,
think that's honestly I think that's every justice type of industry person.
I mean, what about cops?
Yeah.
Do you think it's? I mean, I don't know if it's 99%, but I think they have so much discretionary authority,
Oh yeah.
right? So in justice, it's like, who enters the justice system there's so much discretion on the part of the police officer on the street or the investigator on the street, that they have a lot of
Yeah. It's that
discretion.
power of
How are they going
authority.
to write the report? Are they going to report something? Are they going to, take someone in or whatever, right? Obviously they have a lot of discretion, and because of that, they have a ton of influence. And I think some of them, I've got a nephew who's a cop, and we were he was visiting. He's in Kansas, and we were visiting. And he's a trainer. He does a lot of training for Kansas, the police academy in Kansas now. And he was a firearms instructor, and he's kind of a badass, great freaking kid. And he's my godson, and he's like, Uncle Mike, I'm thinking of going in the Marine Corps. And I'm like, Greg, don't do it, and he did. And, yeah, I'm going to go infantry. And he did, he kind of did everything I told him not to do and sort of did the things that I did up until the point when I got out and I was done. He got out and became a cop, which I told him not to do as well. But he's doing great. I mean, 4 kids, beautiful wife, beautiful family. But we've talked a lot about that. In law enforcement, they lack the mentality. Many people lack the mentality of protect and serve. Right? It's enforce, and you know, you talk about speed traps and stuff. It's asinine. It's horrible. It's ridiculous. Why? Why? He said, what an absolute abuse of the community. Obviously, listen, if somebody's weaving in and out of traffic and driving recklessly, that's different, right? I mean, we all want that person paused, and held accountable because they're driving recklessly. But if I'm pulling up to a 4-way intersection, there's not a freaking car in sight, it's open, I can see for a mile in every direction, and I kind of do a rolling stop, and then there's a cop hidden around the corner because he knows it's an empty intersection, and he's just waiting to trap people. Come on. Oh, I can't hear you.
I had a friend of mine in Georgia. Like, I, he's a police officer in one of the cities in Georgia, and I said, "Hey, man, I was like, isn't it illegal for them to like hide? Like this guy was literally hiding, like hardcore
It's
hiding,
like
hiding."
entrapment almost.
And he goes, was it a state trooper or was it a regular police? And I said, oh, it was a state trooper. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, they've got God authority in the state of Georgia. They could do whatever they want, whenever they want. Does not matter.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not
and
surprised.
I'm like, what? I was like, yeah. And as I've lived here longer, I've started to realize that, they'll do like high speed chases right through the gut of Atlanta, right on the highway. I've seen videos where it's like, midday traffic and like the police are swerving in and out of cars on the dash cam
Come
to get
on.
to this guy. And then like, what happened the other day? There was another one the other day where high speed chase, the the guy ended up crashing into another car and then he killed one of the two people in the other car that he crashed into in this like neighborhood like community outside the highway. And so there's starting to be some uproar about it. But yeah, man, like the power of
Like,
authority that
what's
these
yeah.
folks have. And here's one that you probably won't think of that I feel like we need to get a grip on, and I'm sure you've seen them online, is flight attendants.
Flight attendants? What are you talking about?
Oh my god.
Oh, you mean like them being all kind of over the top?
Oh, like you get on a plane and like they get upset with somebody on a plane, or they don't like the way somebody looks. They'll say you need to get off the plane, and they'll be
Really?
like, hell no, I'm not getting off the plane. I'm in the plane. We're ready to take off. I'm ready to go. And they're like, no, we're not leaving until you get off the plane. And then they'll get like the marshals involved or the sheriff's
Do you think
involved, and
that's
they'll get
like
them
a
kicked off the
real?
plane. Oh yeah, it's a real thing. Like because
I'd love to see what the statistics are
flight
on
attendants have
that.
the authority to remove somebody from the plane. Or
Interesting.
like, and I mean that the airline in general has the ability to tell somebody to leave their
Sure.
plane, but at the same
And they
time,
should. And they should for,
yeah,
if someone's being disruptive, but I don't know, I mean, I, I've never seen it where it was something out of line. I've never seen anybody get removed from a flight, but I don't fly a ton. I mean, I when I if I'm traveling short time, I'll fly. But yeah, I honestly I prefer to drive. You
yeah. I
know,
mean, I mean, I've seen video, and it could be something small or minor, or maybe somebody is upset that somebody did something, and the flight attendant comes, and then instead of like the flight attendant being like, de-escalate the situation or whatever, like they don't do anything to help, or the person that made the complaint. I've seen one where the person that made the complaint about somebody else initially, that person got told to get off the plane, and like, the marshals or whatever showed up, and they're like, get off it, and it's become this whole ordeal, and it's like, and it's all about either somebody being too sensitive or someone having, like I said, they know they have the power to say, hey, get the hell off the plane,
right?
which, a lot of people get emotional about it because they're ready to go or something. And I can see in like instances where there's like a time restraint on something. But for me, heck yeah, all right. You know, involuntary delay, I have to deboard the plane and leave the plane. I'll be happy to do it. Just go ahead and pay me my 4 times my flight costs and put me on the next flight out. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
You know.
I
So,
remember state trooper in Florida. It was on one of the toll roads, two lanes. Two lanes in each direction. Divided by a median, and it was fairly heavy traffic. Thicker traffic.
mm-hmm.
And I had an 18 wheeler behind me and an 18 wheeler beside me. It was just that time of day where there were a lot of trucks on the road. And, rate of traffic was, let's say, 60. Speed
Mm-hmm.
limit's 65 or 70. So we're not speeding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's thick enough that you're not going any faster, right? And I see a truck. I've got a truck like a box truck in front of me. So short range of vision, right? I'm kind of boxed in, and all of a sudden there's a state trooper on the side of the road with someone pulled over. I did not have time to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Really couldn't slow down. Couldn't. I wasn't speeding anyway, right? But I couldn't slow. I was probably going 5 miles below the speed limit. I couldn't change lanes. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
slam on my brakes. By the time I saw him, my field of vision, I was on him. But I
Mm-hmm.
moved over in my lane. I consciously did that, like to make sure, to keep him safe. He was on the passenger side of the car, in the passenger side window.
Mm-hmm.
I see him in my rearview mirror, trot back to his car, flip on his lights, and start pulling out. And I say, "Oh, someone did something." He comes
Yeah.
behind me, pulls me over. I'm like, "What did I do?" So, bam, I'm pulled over, and he comes up to the passenger side. He's like, "You have to move over when a emergency vehicle's on the pound on the other side of the road." And I said, brother, I moved over as far as I could. I was kind of boxed in, and by the time I saw you with a vehicle in front of me, that I didn't have time to do anything. And he, of course, I have my license and registration and insurance in my hand when he shows up. I don't mess around, man. I don't trust. I don't trust. I have my hands on the steering wheel
Yeah.
with my papers, and show me your paper. So I hand it to him. He comes back. He throws it on the seat, and with a ticket, throws it on the passenger seat, and he goes, and that license plate frame you have on your license plate is illegal. And I said, you mean the one that says Marine Corps Combat Veteran? And he trots back to his car, turns on his lights, and pulls out and gets another one. So I'm like, well, that son of a bitch has got an assembly line running, right? I mean, this is what he's doing, and that is not enforcing. That's not helping anybody. He's the one creating a hazardous environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I call one of those ticket clinic places, like the ticket doctor or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, let them freaking deal with it. Well, I get a message back. Your ticket was like 2 months later. I had forgotten about it. And I get an email, check, there's a message in the portal, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, what's going on? Your ticket was overturned, or whatever the term is. And then in parentheses afterwards, and so were 24 others written by the same state trooper.
Really? It said
Oh
that?
yeah. So the judge figured it out, and it sounds like probably gave the dude an earful.
Man. That's that what do they call that where it's it goes against what you think is the normal. Where the judge actually, throws something out. I mean I've been to traffic court and try to fight for something, and I'm like, man, obviously this is bullshit, type of thing, and it's like, and the judge is like, nope, the cop said it. Cop said it's real, so I'm gonna take that. I'm like, what? Like, how is this guy's testimony over mine like any better? There's nothing there, and I've been to some judges that are like that, which is just total
Oh
asinine.
yeah. And it's the system, right? It's you know
Oh yeah, man.
you're all we're all wrong, you know.
What's
But
that? I was watching a movie the other day with a guy. He's like, "Oh, you just got to learn the system's here to work your ass." He's like, "You just got to work harder than the system," or
or stay
something
off
like.
the radar, stay out of the system and off the radar. I mean
Oh yeah.
that's my you know what? It's funny. I don't know what happened, but I've been all these prepper videos and crap are popping up in my feed,
Yeah.
and really interesting. Somebody was and I think it came up because I searched for something. So I have a guy I served with, um, who's now retired, fairly recently, and we talk maybe once a month. Usually, like talk by text
Mhm.
once a month, and he's retired Special Forces colonel, and so we knew he he had been in, and I had served beside the unit that this remember the bombing in Vegas, the Tesla.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, um, he had been in that unit, and I served served alongside those guys. So he didn't. So I said, hey, Foxy, do you know this kid? Um, and he's like, no, I don't. And he kind of he replied, it was like PTSD question mark, and
Mhm.
um, and I said, I don't know. I don't know anything about his history, So that was the start of the conversation. He calls me a day or two later, and he's like, "There's a lot more going on than than we know about right now in this particular case," and he said, there's some weird shit. There's some scary weird shit. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And he said, let's just say there's some scary weird shit, and I'm not talking about it. And he is not a paranoid guy. Like he is a God fearing, go to church, just freaking great man. Really a good guy, way better than me as a person, right? Um, and me, a beautiful wife, family, just good guy, overall good guy. And he was like, no. Um, he kind of, we kind of trailed off the conversation into other things, and he sent me a text message, and he said, like later, like maybe later that night or the next night, something, sent me a text message that said, all I can say is, carry all the time, wherever you are, even in church. And I'm like, what's going on? And I
Yeah.
mean, he's a 2A guy, right? I mean, he's, I think any right thinking person is,
Yeah.
hey, there's nothing, you know, responsible gun ownership is what, it's one of our fundamental rights as a country. It's, number 2 on the amendment list for a reason. And, so I'm like, okay, I get carry. I don't carry all the time, but I get that. I get that. I
Oh
get
yeah.
that. But when he said even in church, and and then I saw something not long after, and it was I don't know if you know Sean Ryan. He's a former special operator, as well, and has a pretty popular podcast. He does a lot of interviews and kind of expose type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about was talking to somebody, I don't know who she was, a woman who was like, and this was a clip that popped up right in that same time frame when after he said this to me, right? And the dude says, so what you're saying is that there's at least 1,000 active Al Qaeda warriors, fighters in the country. And she said, at least, or more, many more.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe they've been training for specific stuff, like they're training, for something like, like what happened in Israel, like the invasion type of situation. And she said, it's gonna be a multi purpose, you know, modal attack on more than one location. And it's just the thing you got to understand is these guys are not, they may be not suicide bombers, although some will be. She said,
Mm-hmm.
but understand, they aren't going to surrender. They
Oh yeah.
aren't people who surrender. They don't surrender. If they're fighting, their plan is to fight to the death,
Oh yeah.
to fight till they win or they're dead. And I'm like, wow, all right. So I've been getting a lot of that kind of stuff in my feed, like, what do you do when the grid goes out? What do you do when this? What do you do when
All
that?
right.
And it's, man, I don't know if I'm getting paranoid or there's more wacky crap going on, but
I'm a believer in going back to like 1850, man. I think everybody should have a sidearm. Just strolling down the street. I mean, I when I go to North Carolina, I like it. I think it keeps everybody gives everybody a reality check. When they
there's
see.
there was a saying I saw one time. I mean, God, this was probably, I want to say, like, just in my frame of mental, memories, probably something I saw in the 80s. And it said, and it was probably like a bumper sticker, and it said, an armed society is a polite society.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, all right, you got a legit point there, I mean,
Oh yeah, man. I mean,
it's,
if anytime the government tries to take things away or regulate something, it always turns bad.
well,
Everything. Like,
what does every dictator do? Hitler took away the guns. In Venezuela, Chavez took away the guns. It's the first thing they do. They control the media and they take away the guns for the safety of the children.
yeah.
You know,
You know, you
yeah,
got
you're right. There's a
the
fair amount of gun
war,
violence, but the
war
gun
on
violence
crime.
happens where? Where's the gun violence happen? It happens in locations that have the strictest gun laws. You know, typically it's street violence, and
Hmm.
they already have restrictions. They're already owning the thing illegally. They
Oh
already
yeah,
have
I
it
mean,
legally. You know, I mean,
I
that
think
ain't
the war on crime was the one when they started trying to take down guns. So they limited guns and firearms and explosives and stuff from people back when they started the whole war on crime thing in the early 1900s, and then war on drugs. You know, and it got bad. It got worse. Got people making weird ass drugs now, like, and they're killing people. And now you got cartels that want to import it illegally, right? Because they can produce it and try to get it into the country. Like,
right.
just
Yeah,
stop trying to limit people from doing whatever they want to do, and just have some oversight to make sure people aren't doing it in a bad way or
right.
a nasty way. I mean, just regulate it like you do a real estate agent.
Spoken like a libertarian.
Real estate agent is regulated to a degree. They can't just straight up lie about the house, you
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
just apply that minimal amount of regulation on the rest of the
Listen.
stuff.
I'm a libertarian. I believe in as little government as possible, but that also includes not outlawing things between consenting adults. Um, I'm not a huge fan of legalizing all drugs. I'm not because I've seen it in practice. You know, I've seen it in Colorado. It has backfired in a lot of ways. But at the same time, whatever the freaking government solutions are usually pretty stupid. They're not good. They don't have good solution, you know. And man, who's the worst drug dealers on the planet? The freaking pharmaceutical industry. Oh shit, I'm probably going to get disappeared for saying
Now you better
that.
watch out, man.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. I
But
mean, if it's like, I don't know, like I'm a and myself, I if drugs want to be made, drugs want to be made. People want to use whatever, they're leave them to their own devices.
yeah,
But like education, and then just kind of navigating and guiding and swaying the trends of what's happening. I mean, it's only cool and exciting because it's dangerous. Like, not in a dangerous sense of like I'm gonna die.
right,
It's am I gonna get caught? It's like,
right.
am I doing something that's like borderline illegal? Am I cool? That's my thrill. And
Right.
it there's a chance for someone to make real money there. You go to these states that have marijuana's legal. Shit's cheap as hell to get, right? You know, you go to a state to where you can go to prison for it. It's expensive as hell to get that weed
Sure.
over there. you know, so like, open that up, and then I think like Colorado and Oregon and these other states that are more liberal-ish. I don't give credit to the drugs so much as I do as the other shit that these
The
states allow
overall
to happen.
policies.
Yeah, they allow they you know
Yeah.
they love to harbor criminals anyway. So they think, oh, everybody's nice, everybody's has their
I
mistakes. It's
really
like,
see. You know what? I don't think it's the everybody's nice argument. There are people. There absolutely are people who believe that, right?
hmm
There's people who are emotional thinkers, not logical thinkers, right? They're emotional thinkers and they accept those emotional arguments. But at the higher levels, that progressive agenda is there are people who are pulling the strings on all of these emotional thinkers for an agenda.
oh yeah,
And the agenda is they want to keep the country destabilized. I believe this wholeheartedly. They want to
yeah,
keep it destabilized. They want white against black, rich against poor, you know, X against Y, whatever it is, because if we're fighting against each other, we're not watching what they're doing.
hmm
If we're not, they're raiding the hen house while the freaking, while the guard dog's distracted chasing a squirrel, and that's what they're doing to us, you
Yeah.
know. And I think it's, you know, now we'll get crazy. I think it's tied to a bigger agenda, and I think that bigger agenda. See, everybody says, "Oh, it's, you know, they want to control us and they want to, you know, whatever, right? They want the resources, they want cheap labor. You know, it's the Rockefeller thing where I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers and all that crap." I think all of that, including the socialist agenda, the progressive agenda, and all of that, I think all of that comes from one higher agenda. And that 99% of the people involved with that progressive movement, if we can capture it and just call it that, right? I think they are 99% of them have no idea the bigger agenda. They're emotional thinkers being
Yeah.
manipulated by the bigger agenda without knowing it. And if they knew it, many of them would be like, "Oh my goodness, no." But what's that bigger agenda? It's the Antichrist. Don't think I'm crazy. Follow me. Hold on.
Oh,
Follow me. Follow
all
me.
right. All right.
Follow me for a minute. Which agenda, which agenda politically, which agenda believes in destabilizing family values, right? Or at least the net result of their activities, destabilizing family values, normalizing perversion, um, you know, all removing, you know, Christianity or you know, any sort of moral code and structure from from our society, right? It's obvious what agenda that is. You know, that's a progressive agenda, 100%. You know, it is the progressive agenda. Well, the environmental movement, the civil rights movement, the labor movement, all of those movements that started out with wonderful intentions were hijacked by a progressive movement.
Hmm.
Okay, they've taken them to the progressive movement and away from family values. Do you know, prior to the civil rights movement, there African Americans were on par for standard of living and wealth and for nuclear families as Americans were. I mean, as white Americans were.
Hmm.
It wasn't like this big, you know, problem there. Now there's big problem. Listen, if you've got restaurants or water fountains or whatever that, you know, are restricted, 100%. That's disgusting. It's horrible. But their agenda, that civil rights movement, do you know 99% of African Americans were Republicans? That movement got hijacked by the progressives, who then took it further and further and further left. The environmental movement. The environmental
Hmm.
movement, you know, what organization has preserved more wetlands in our country than any other organization? Ducks Unlimited, a pro hunting, pro Second Amendment organization. They've done more actual good for the environment.
Hmm.
Um, uh, the Sierra Club, a past CEO or CEO, whatever, I don't know if they call him the CEO, but a past leader of the Sierra Club left the movement and came out and said the green movement, the environmental movement is no longer about environmentalism. It's about progressivism.
Hmm.
Why? Because see, these are emotional agendas, right?
Yeah.
You know, I was a freaking Sierra Club member. It was literally a
Oh.
Sierra Club. I was a Sierra Club member. Yep. Swear to God. Swear to God. I was a Sierra Club member. Scout's honor. I've never been a scout, but honest to God, I swear to God. But it was not a socialist movement back then. And I
Hmm.
went to meetings, I went to things, and you know, I mean, I went not like actively all the time because I was deploying and, you know, in the Marine Corps and stuff. But I would go and they'd have like hikes and stuff like that, and you know, they'd do trail cleanups, and you know, I mean, and it was not a bunch of anti-American, anti-capitalist, you know, hateful people. It was people who loved the outdoors, who loved wildlife, who loved, normal people.
Yeah,
It
I
got
mean,
it got hijacked by the socialist agenda. There's no
it's
global warming.
no.
It's the dumbest thing in the world. Global warming is not man-made. It's not caused by man. That we
Hmm.
went through a mini ice age. Our
Yeah.
world, our Earth, our planet went through a mini ice age in the medieval times.
Hmm.
Prior to the medieval times when the mini ice age happened, up into the 1800s, it was still coming out of the mini ice age. Prior to that, there is plenty of evidence as the glacial ice is receding, what's underneath it? Trees, land. What does that tell you? 500 years ago, 800 years ago, that was freaking land. There wasn't ice over it. So wait, you're telling me it used to not have ice over it?
Yeah.
Now it has ice over it, and that ice is receding. That ice is receding because we're coming out of the mini ice age. Look it up. It's a fact. You know, carbon bullshit. Do you know what percentage carbon is of our atmosphere? It's like 0.0002.
Yeah.
And you know what it was 200 years ago? 0.0002 or 1 or whatever it is. I mean, it was the same. It's the same freaking number.
Hmm.
Hadn't changed.
Oh yeah, it's psychological warfare. I mean, they're using the same tactics on
It's
Americans
emotional.
as they've been doing in like strategic wars set up. I
It's
mean,
it's
the N-
about
the
it's
Nazis did it in
creating an
Germany.
emotional argument that emotional people will buy into so that they can be controlled to propagate a progressive agenda. And that progressive agenda, I believe there are the worker bees of the progressive agenda, right? They're the Prius drivers and the coexist sticker, people, right? That are out and about, and they are like the socialists used to say, useful idiots, right?
Hmm.
They're useful idiots because they don't really know the corrupt agenda of socialism. They're just attracted to the feel good, emotional, I'm a better person than you because I believe in, whatever, right?
I'd like to see some highly trained like psychologists, doctors, or something do a real compare analysis against the Nazis and the leftist Democrats right now, like the
They,
whole agendas, and see like piece it by piece.
there's no difference. Their
They're
mentality
using the
is the same.
same tactics
Yep.
psychologically
But
on the
but
people.
watch this. Let's go on a little journey. Okay, you have those worker bees, right? The coexist and the rainbow coalition, the rainbow sticker people, right? They're good. They're this. They're that. They're the other thing. Okay. Now, who's above them? The progressive politicians.
Hmm.
They're pulling their strings, right? Now, what's their agenda? They're the feel good people. Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton are not feel good people. They're control people. They're control and wealth. They're trying to create control and wealth. And they know that if they keep the country destabilized, if they keep Americans fighting against each other, they're going to be able to rob the, chicken coop, take everything out with no consequences, right?
Hmm.
So they're working on this one world, progressive agenda because they're going to be at the top of the heap. They want the worker bees working happy with nothing. You'll own nothing and be happy about it, right? They're on
Hmm.
that team, okay? Now, who's pulling their strings? Who's pulling their strings? Can you say George Soros? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think George Soros. Those people are even in the same category. Bill Gates and whatever. Who's pulling their strings? I think somewhere, somehow, those people are being manipulated by an antichrist agenda, and they're useful idiots. The Hillary Clintons and the Nancy Pelosi's and all of those people are being manipulated, just like the mindless, progressives that are that are driving the Prius and the coexist sticker people. They don't know they're being manipulated, and I think that upper tier of progressive globalists, one world. I don't think they know one world government. Are you freaking kidding? That's the progressive agenda. Does that
Yeah.
sound something like
Well, I think like
Satanism? It sure does to me.
I think like the Clintons and all those people, the Rothschilds and all that stuff is and I've been in meetings and stuff, not in like deep down meetings, but like wealth meetings or like how to really make it type of thing. And what really just circulates, like the undertones of all the stuff that circulates in those big wealth conference meetings are that, it's either you're either the wolf or the sheep when it
Right.
comes down to it. And these people have convinced that are like, we're the wolves and everybody else are just sheep. And, so we're gonna systemically manipulate them to a certain degree. They're not worried about countries and freedoms and all this other stuff. They
Not
don't
at
really
all.
give a shit because all they're focused on is methods and ways and how they can have a long play, which a lot of these big wealthy people do. They may
The
see,
BlackRock,
yeah,
Fink,
they'll see that,
Gates.
they're not looking for a 1 to 10 year, return
No.
on investment. They're looking for a multi-decade investment that, maybe halfway through their adulthood or, leading into their next families that they'll have even more. And so, you look back, I mean, you like Bill Gates, for instance, like Bill Gates was, this computer guy that he from my understanding, like, wasn't even like,
Not even
you
that
know, com-
smart.
not even, yeah, he's not even much of a tech guy, but he found his way into the company and doing certain things, and now he stepped away, and now he's got like this foundation and all these
Right.
things that are like pushing agendas. He's
peddling
buying all
peddling
these
an
other
agenda
things,
influence. But so
right?
what you're saying 100%, I agree with you, but
But I
they are
think
they are
all those
useful
things,
idiots. They
I don't
think
know.
they're here to create wealth and control and power for their generations to come. That's what they think they're doing. They think that there's going to be, hey, listen, you're the sheep or the freaking wolf, and they think they're the wolves, and they think that as long as they keep the lower echelons of society, you know arguing, oh, this life matters and that life matters, and oh, go patriots, and get them focused on all this other bullshit, you know the carnival, get them focused on that they'll do their bidding, and they'll be good little worker bees, and they'll just be busily engaged in the stuff that they want them to be doing. And there's truth to that. And I believe that level that you're talking about, the Gates, and the Clintons are in there, Obamas, they're all in there, and they're all incestuously connected. Long. There's a lot more going on in that. The royal family and all that, they're all on that same train. But I would argue that, in as much as we can see they're there, they're pulling the strings, just like you just said, and that's 100% right. They're pulling the strings, but someone or something is pulling their strings, and most of them
I mean, you
don't
can,
even know it. The BLM, the LBG, LMNOP crowd, all their strings are being pulled,
yeah,
and and they don't know that they're being manipulated to think a certain way, to see things a certain way. The news is full. There is a clear agenda, right? To manipulate. I'm talking about now the ground level. There's a clear agenda to manipulate us into being at odds with each other, and um, to believing and thinking in a certain way.
yeah. I mean,
And I
yeah.
think
I mean,
those people up there are being manipulated just the same. And if you look at their agenda, like if you look at what they're guiding us toward, what's a one world government? I mean, read the freaking Revelation, read the Bible. One world government.
I mean,
It's there. That's the plan.
I
It's a
mean,
progressive
everybody's
agenda.
everybody's intended on a belief and stuff and things, and I think in my view, like I said, it's different than yours, but my view is it's more on a like the religious stuff is just another chapter in the psychological manipulation of things,
I mean,
because
maybe so.
even down to like these groups, these speakers, or these salespeople, these wealth building people that have these followings, right? I feel like they're following the same tactics as like the Democrats and a lot of this fundamental religious
Of course
stuff,
they are.
and even as people like come out and speak, even me, you, anybody, it's like, yes, we have our thoughts of and our ideas of like, okay, this is the way we think. You know, it's take the red pill, and it's like, how much of what I'm pushing did I get manipulated on? One way or another.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I feel like there's just good people that have good intentions that are like open to help other people, and then there's bad people that consciously know what they're doing is to only serve and fulfill themselves, even at the expense of other people, because they don't care and they don't think about it. It's they just they don't think about it. So like I'm making my I mean a lot of the capitalist movement, you know you know that's supposed to
Oh, you just froze.
overly unethical capitalists that come in and poison the water, that are like, I'm going to make as
Sure.
much money as I want. I don't give a shit who I step on. That's the American dream. Make it, right? Blah, blah, blah. They try to like sell both sides of the boat there. And it's
Fair enough.
like
Yeah.
always this manipulation. It's like,
But I think those people, brother, I think those people are freaking the same.
hmm
They're all the same. Up there, they're all the same. And they all think they're doing do you think Mitt Romney's cares any more about America than Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi? Not a bit. Not a bit. And that's the point is it's all a freaking game. It's all the matrix. They're
yeah.
all there to fool us, to say pick sides. Pick sides. I'm red, I'm red, I'm red, I'm blue, I'm blue, I'm blue. You know, it's all a freaking game, I believe.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, I
it's
think
all a
and I think
stage.
it's
It's all a show. And
yeah, it's all a
I mean,
show.
it's in the early days, the last 100 years, it was, let's create professional sports to keep people busy. Who invested in professional sports? The government. They invested in
Yep.
professional sports. They give them all these stipends, all these grants to do shit. Why? Because they create distraction. And now what do they do in the recent years? They gave all these like weird ass organizations money to create distractions. Yes, there's some backdoor deals where we're circulating, laundering money, but they invest in these different agendas and these groups and stuff. It's all distract. LBG, the gay community, the whatever community,
Right.
the bullshit this, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. They put money out to this crap so that they create distractions, because if people are preoccupied, they can do whatever they want, and so people don't rally up a good knowledge base and remember what's going on when election time comes, and they just kind of forget all the bad shit that was really trying to be uprooted. Like Hillary Clinton, like you mentioned, the only person to have, what is it, like 30 something friends commit suicide in their
Right.
life or something.
Well,
I
that's
saw.
the point, right? Every that's what I'm saying is there's a lot more going on, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, once you get that far down the rabbit hole and that deep into the corruption, it kind of consumes and takes your life over. Where you're like, okay, I've done so much shady shit. Like I'm bought in. Like I'm in this to the death, because if I slip
Blood
up
in,
on
blood out.
being bad, people are gonna find out, or this is gonna get found out. You had what's the guy? Epstein guy, like his shit was coming out and he was slipping up and he was ready to come out, and then he's gone. And so it's like he was deep down the wormhole and he was ready to start let it cripple, and then they had to take care of that. And so
Yep.
it's people are so far down the wormhole, they can't let up. They just have to go until they're dead, you know.
Yeah,
So
and again, I think that those people are having their strings pulled somewhere somehow, and I think that's what I'm talking about, right? I'm not, you know, I'm not saying. And listen, you know, if someone doesn't believe in God, then they can't believe what I'm saying, right?
yeah,
But I would say if you can accept the notion of a God and or good, if there's a good, there's an evil. If there's a God that is on our side, or some of us are on his side or her side, then there is a counter force. And some people are on that side. And some people are unwittingly doing the bidding of that entity. And I think that, whether listen, and the Bible is, the most, it's the most fact-checked, piece of information that's ever been published. And there's more evidence of biblical archaeology. There are more elements of the Bible that are proved, and it happens, and it's happening all the time. And people are like, it doesn't make media news. Why? Who controls the media? Okay. If people were aware, do a Google search, and dig deep,
Yeah.
because the surface will be hidden. Do a Google search. What archaeological evidence has been confirmed from biblical history, and you will be blown away. I mean, it's shocking. That for me, because
the Bible's a history book, man.
What's that?
A lot of the Bible's a history book because a lot of stuff,
Right.
was
But
what's
when you
going
go,
on.
but
So
when
yeah,
you
it
go
could be
back,
checked.
so it's not a book of fables about a freaking magic man in the sky. That ain't the case. And there's more there. I don't pretend to know. I don't pretend to know everything, but there's more there, and there's more stuff going on that if we can believe there's something there, then we can believe there's something against it. And that's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I think. But
Oh yeah.
hey man, I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah. Let's wrap this thing up, man. Maybe next week I'll have some real world stuff to talk about because I've been consumed.
We could talk about
I've been
finance,
I've
or
been
we
in a
could talk
cave,
about
man.
survival stuff.
Yeah, man.
I just keep getting
You bring in and teach us
inundated.
how to make a campfire out of sticks, man.
Bro. You know what? I actually just made for so I have a dual. My grill has two sides to it. It has a charcoal, and then it has a gas grill side, and then a burner. And I like the charcoal, and I get like the real wood charcoal. It's I don't like the quick light one, right? The quick light ones have a horrible flavor. They taste like lighter fluid, right? It's as bad as propane, or it's actually, I think it's almost worse than propane. So I get those, but they don't light fast. So I get bundles of fat wood, which is little they're little pieces of wood that are full. They're sap filled, right?
Okay.
They're more combustible. And so they sell these little sawdust balls almost, right? That are easy to light, and then you kind of put the fat wood, and then you put the charcoal on top of it, and it gets you up and going and lit. And so I said, you know what? There's got to be some better options, because those little things, like there's, I don't know, let's say 10 or maybe even 20, but it's like $20. So it's like $1 per little sawdust ball. And I'm like, it's just sawdust, So the first thing I did is, I'm gonna just shave the fat wood a little bit, just kind of not cut it off, not whittle it away, but just score it, so it peels up a little bit, and it's much easier to light. I'm like, oh well, that works pretty well. But what if then this whole survival stuff, right? What if I need to start a fire outside and I don't have fat wood, right? So I did a little bit of due diligence. Dryer lint.
Yeah, and
Just pieces
Michael
of
doesn't
cotton.
smoke weed, by the way. So
No, I don't. I don't even
You know.
smoke weed. I don't. It actually makes me sick. I've tried it a couple times. I inhaled even, but I don't like it at all. But no, so dryer lint, right? You always have dryer lint.
Yeah.
So we've started putting it into these gallon Ziploc bag. That and a little bit of Vaseline, you can make a ball. You know, just pull off the pieces of dryer lint, a little bit of Vaseline. I did it with gloves on because it's slimy. And I made a ball. Hold on. Hold
Uh-oh.
on. And I'm putting together a little survival kit. Yeah, that's an ammo box, but it's a little plastic ammo box. And so I have, these are my little dryer lint balls, as you can see. They're, you know, like bigger than a marble, but they're dryer lint, and so you pull them apart. I tried it. Thing burned for like 10 minutes. Little ball, smaller than a golf ball. And then I have, you know what that is?
Is it like a striker?
Yeah, a
Okay.
ferro rod. This one has not been used much, so it actually has a lot of the paint is still on there. So you kind of have to scrape the paint off to make it work. And you go like that. And this one has paint on it, so it's not working right. But
Yeah.
and the sparks, so you do it right close to that thing, and I would have to score it up, you know.
Right.
This one I had two. I had two of them. One that had been used a fair bit, but you can't. The only thing you see is that it's scored. You know, it doesn't wear out really. It'll last for, I don't know how long they last, but they last a long time.
Right.
But I was literally like pop, pop, pop. You know, 3 or 4 strikes, and the little dryer lint ball was burning. So I mean, there's, I don't know, maybe 20 in there. And so, hey, listen, you know, if there's a hurricane and we lose power and I have to cook outside, all right, yeah, sure, I'll use my lighter. But if I didn't have a lighter, but you know, there's a lot of problems, and what just happened in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah,
Complete
Michael's gonna start a side channel about
complete
survival
grid
tactics,
shutdown. Hey,
apocalyptic survival.
It don't cost nothing to be a little bit prepared. Spain and Portugal this week. I've got a brother-in-law who lives in Spain. Complete the grid shut down. There were people trapped in elevators and, you know, things like that for hours. And the power was off in the country of Spain and the country of Portugal. The power was off for like 9 hours.
All right, Michael. When a storm comes through Florida and knocks out the power for a day,
Hey,
I'm
but you
expecting
know
a
what?
lot of video, a lot of survival
Hey, but I'm just
journals
saying,
from you, man.
come and take it. But hey, it's,
All right,
you
man.
know, it's fun stuff. It's good to feel like you have a little bit of preparation. I think it's,
Oh yeah,
you know, and I live in Florida, so
yeah.
of
All right,
course,
man. Well, it's good
if
chatting.
if the shit hits the fan down here, I'm just coming to Atlanta to stay with you. So peace
All right,
out.
man. Just watch out for the troopers.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. I'll see you next
Later.
week.
Okay,
All
bye.
right, bye.